let's crack on. Right. So when we think of agility, we think of small, fast, and maneuverable. So what does that mean when we apply these properties to organizational structures? Timely decisions, effortlessly adaptable, fewer people? Agility is a property of being small. In recent years, Agile's become a bit of a buzzword. It's been touted as a panacea for all your organizational woes. Just going to adjust my camera. It's been knocked. There we go. However, this completely ignores the essence of what agility is, which is being adaptable and delighting your customers. Agility is a property of smaller, leaner structures where the decision making can be close to the action. Bigger organizations with the layers of hierarchy that they have and the bureaucracy that is necessitated by it have slowed down their decision-making progress, decision-making ability. They have become too big for people within the organization to talk to each other. In fact, they are so big that it is easy to not talk to each other. When you look at the Agile Manifesto, it's largely about delighting the customer. And so we need to consider the values and the principles of the manifesto and how they should impact our businesses. We need to read them. We need to reread them. We need to keep them present in mind and anchor not only our own behaviors to these values and principles, but help support those we are there to educate and coach to also anchor their behaviors, regardless of the size of your organization. Now, when I reflect upon my own consumerism, there's usually one thing that comes to mind: coffee. I habitually frequent 2 coffee shops, and I do so for entirely different reasons. I have this lovely small independent coffee shop at the end of my street that's called Crazy Beans. They respond to my personal desires and give me a lovely little cozy room at the end of my street that's not my house for me to go to. And then there's Costa. It's ubiquitous, the standard is known, but again, there's no variation. You're getting what you're given. When I visit my local barista, I talk to her about the coffees that I've enjoyed elsewhere. She makes recommendations and she will tell me which drinks are likely to suit the taste of what I've had before. When I go to Costa, it's a fixed menu. It might even be a machine in a service station. And the baristas, if there is one, are unlikely to know anything more about coffee than they've had through their internal training. Now, Costa's going to delight me when I'm going through a train station and I need some caffeine fast. But they're not the place I want to spend a leisurely afternoon on a Saturday with my friends making a memorable experience. We've all seen those lines of communication drawings which look like spirographs from the 80s, but they've never really resonated with me. Oh, hang on. No, that is a spirograph. There we go. Now, communication lines grow more than the amount of people you add. But what does this feel like in reality? I certainly don't get it from this image. So let's go to a party. Here we are, we're sat around a table. There's a 10 of us and we're, enjoying a few drinks with friends. And now we're going to toast our host. Maybe it's their birthday party and we can all cheer each other's glasses. Sure, it's going to be a bit awkward and there'll be some giggles as we lean and stretch over each other, but we're quickly very successful. We're a self-organizing team. No one's had to tell us how to do it. We've just worked it out in the moment. And this is the dream of agilists everywhere. But maybe we're in a more formal ballroom setting. I love this picture. This is a film photo, which is why it's a little bit grainy. It's a masquerade ball in New York from the 80s. Now, the host is there and thanking everyone for organizing it and for setting it all up. And we're going to toast the host, thanking them for having organized it themselves. But we can't chink each other's glasses. We know we can't. We look around, we see people that we can't even see the faces of. So we're not even going to try. We might interact with a few people around us, but the rest of the room is distant and might as well not be there. Teams working in isolation, they're heading towards a common goal, but they're not able to support each other. Did I see someone put their hand up? No? All right, I'll keep going. Eventually, a group becomes too large to enable individuals and interactions over processes and tools. When this happens, the organization's usually around 200 people. And whatever the endeavor of that organization, be it commercial or not, it's become so big that it has prevented itself from being agile. Now, this is a lovely quote from Mythical Man Month. It's an old book, but still incredibly relevant. Men and months are interchangeable commodities only when a task can be partitioned among many workers with no communication among them. Software production isn't like car production, and I'm not the first person to say so. If you add more people to a car production line, it is likely that that car is going to be built quicker. But the thing with cars is that every copy needs to be built. It's only by building each copy of the car that value is created to the customer and that the organization can realize that value. And of course, once you've built the entire car from scratch, your customers are delighted. But until then, nothing can be achieved. Software can be copied infinite amount of times with minimal human labor. It is the design that creates the value and delights the customer. In software development, designing and building the software are the same thing. And most of the human labor in creating the copies is now done by the customer. You go to your app store, you go to Steam, and you initiate making of the copy. It's no longer a CD that is posted out. You take it, you take the responsibility. When you add more people to a software project, you likely won't complete it any quicker. In fact, you're more likely to slow it down and perhaps to the point where you never finish it. Think of the old Prince 2 projects from the late 90s and early noughties that famously failed and spent huge amounts, typically of public money. And now we see the same thing with safe projects, achieving pretty much similar results. There is this pervasive idea in project management that you can solve problems quicker by adding people. It's untrue, old-fashioned, and harmful to those who are subjected to it. The mental anguish, stress, and sense of incompetence that comes when you are working on a massive project where you can have little to no influence. A more effective way would be to create valuable software by having as few teams as possible and develop the features consecutively. This allows for minimal communication points and maximizes the depth of understanding that your developers have. The FBI spent 10 years and $600 million of public money and achieved absolutely no delivery. They then put it into an agile project management stream, spent 3 years and $99 million. Not only did they deliver all of their requirements, but they also delivered their improvements too. When you have iterative increments, you allow for many opportunities for feedback, and you can understand how well or not you are fulfilling your users' and your customers' needs. Organizations also gain economic efficiencies. You only have to hire a few people. And once your feature is delivered, you can sell it as an MVP. That team then goes to work on to the next feature. This way, you delight your customers by increasing the amount of features that your product offers. And potentially you can do this at no extra cost to early adopters. And yet organizations continue to think that more teams equals better, faster, stronger. Now, my argument here is not that organizations cannot improve. Large organizations need to become more adaptable to the changing forces that we face today and the challenges that are going to hit many organizations, especially with the way that climate change is moving and the economies are going, and I'm obliged to say AI. Now, a more agile organization is great, but it is not an agile organization. To achieve a customized experience, you need to understand the customer well and know who can deliver the needs of that customer. So this means you need to seek feedback from your customers often and understand from them what they need. If you have a networked organization, you can then efficiently utilize the whole to find out who can achieve it and when they can achieve it. Like the difference between toasting at that small party or your big party. A smaller organization can be more agile when trying to fill skills or knowledge gaps, and they can understand their customers better and delight them faster. This is possible for larger organizations, but by the time they've done it, has their customer lost the competitive advantage? Now, if you're a large organization and you're used to planning for 1 or more years at a time, then moving to quarterly planning is going to seem revolutionary and definitely be a huge improvement to your agility. But changing your plans quarterly is not as advantageous as changing your plans every 2 to 3 weeks. If feedback from your customer is that you are building upon mistaken assumptions, then what is involved in correcting them? The agile answer, of course, is collaborating with the customer to understand and fix those errors. When you fix your errors early on, you are avoiding compounding the problems. Now, in Scrum, the team meets the customer every sprint. They receive feedback and they collaborate on the project's future. That updated product backlog feeds into sprint planning, and the team can choose the most value that can be achieved next. Small organizations with networked teams can change direction often, and this means that they can help their customers maintain their competitive advantage. Now, I am an SPC, to my shame, but we all need to earn a living. So this is safe. I'm not sure which version this is. I want to say 5, but it could be 6. And it's favored by larger organizations. So I'm going to talk about this in relation to larger organizations. Now, despite having customer centricity in the middle there, it really doesn't encourage direct communication with the customer. However, it employs some techniques such as lean UX, user personas, empathy mapping. These are there to be proxies of the customers and the users for the developers to imagine interacting with as they encounter problems. And they are great tools to help developers make decisions if they haven't got access to the real thing in the moment. But they are not real beings. They cannot talk back to us and tell us if our assumptions are right or wrong. However, if your organization has never considered the customer, then this safe abstraction will considerably improve your adaptability. Still, it's not the same as being agile. Agility cannot be achieved without direct developer and customer communication. And again, the smaller organization wins. They've got direct communication lines and they are best placed to delight their customers. With organizational agility, the ability to communicate effectively with everyone inside the organization is key. Close connection nodes between people allow for informal introductions to others, regardless of the seniority within the organization. If you have gone through a contact to a senior leader, And that leader has been told by this mutual contact that you are a good person and worth listening to. You're getting the social proof that we all know through social media that is incredibly important for humans to have, to hear people and their ideas. And when one person can talk to anyone else, regardless of seniority, information can flow smoothly and transparently, faster and more accurately, and allows for decision-making to happen quickly. Now, information flows downward easily. The relationship is one to many. If you have one piece of information and you tell 6 people, and those 6 people have one piece of information to tell those 6 people, it's very easy. But going up the other way, the volume is too great. Those 6 pieces of information told to one person get condensed down maybe to just one piece of information when you are one of 6 people telling yet another person a piece of information. Now, this is the dual operating system model in SAFe. What SAFe attempts here is to place their method onto a traditional hierarchy to achieve the networks that we hope exist in smaller organizations. And SAFe attempts with this to recreate the internal networking opportunities that are more natural inside smaller organizations. They create processes and meetings to drive communication behaviors that larger organizations need in order to achieve more agility. Now, regardless of what you think of big room planning, it does bring together teams so that they can see where they fit in the whole of their product delivery. And again, this can be considered a massive improvement for many large organizations. And there is something to this. You can try to mandate good behaviors and enforce it by self-discipline or command and control management styles. But how SAFe does it is by creating environments where desired behaviors are most likely to be exhibited. And we see this with the zebra crossing. We know that they're kept areas that are kept clear from parked cars, so there's good visibility for both the pedestrians and the drivers. The drivers are looking for pedestrians, and if there is one there, the pedestrians are more likely to cross there than some random point in the street. It's a good lesson for all of us to learn, small or large organization. Create the environment that drives the behaviors you want to see exhibited. Now, achieving true agility is as complex as the products and the systems that we live within. It's easier for small organizations by virtue of their size because they can make quick decisions. They can adapt rapidly to the changing market circumstances, and they can maintain closer personal interactions with their customers. The heart of agility lies in the ability to delight customers, to be responsive and tailor experiences for them. This is just more likely to happen in a leaner structure where the decision-making is closer to the action. Large organizations face significant challenges in achieving agility, the layers of hierarchy and the bureaucracy that comes with scale. And again, it's like clinking those glasses in the big room. Meaningful interactions are limited to those who are nearby you, and it leaves the broader group and potentially the customer completely disconnected. As organizations grow, they risk becoming too cumbersome to sustain intimate, customer-focused interactions that drive true agility. Now, this doesn't mean that larger organizations cannot strive for greater adaptability or to delight their customers more. And they're going to continue to adopt frameworks and methods to improve their responsiveness and their adaptiveness. And these methods recreate networking, communication opportunities that are much more inherent to smaller organizations who don't need to think and consider these things. However, these frameworks often fail to achieve the intimacy and direct customer feedback that we see in smaller organizations. And that, again, is just because of the size. The emotional connection is more if you are a small organization where you all feel that you really make a difference to whether or not that organization lives or dies. So we need to continue to provide structured approaches so that we can help larger organizations move towards more adaptable structures. But an organization must consider, when it is considering its growth and scaling strategies, what it needs to do to achieve and remain agile. Most agile organizations can remain self-managing until they hit about 15 people. And beyond that, you're going to start needing to bring in a layer of middle management to network between the groups. And that may be okay. Organizations grow for many reasons, some good, some bad. But when you do grow, it will likely be at the cost of your agility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgina. Thank you. So, oh, hello.
Hello.
Ah, you're swapping over, right?
Yes, it's just swapping over. And I'm running away.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. If you could just show your appreciation with a clap or an emoji or something just to show. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good. So, I don't know, was there any questions in the chat?
There wasn't any specific questions, but happy we should take them here if there are any. Create a small conversation.
Absolutely.
Any comments, thoughts from anyone?
Hi, Georgina. Thanks so much. I saw this as, kind of a great way to have a conversation with the company, when they're about to scale. Have you delivered it to those types of organizations or more just the agility community?
No, this is still very much talk and development. So there's just a few friendly faces like yourself who I'm looking to see where it's landing and what I can do better and what I can add, what I can take out.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Georgina.
You
said something that sounded really awesome, but I want an example. So you said organizations should create the environments in which they want to see the behaviors. Could you give an example of how an organization might be able to do that?
Well, I think the big room planning is an excellent example of it. I mean, I know we don't love SAFe, but it does have some good things in it, and it's worth noting them, because else we're going to miss some good things. So with the big room planning, what it does is brings all the teams together, and they talk for 2 days about where their interdependencies are, how they're going to organize their work over the next 3 months, so that if one team's got a dependency on another team's piece of work, that other team does their piece of work earlier than they would have done otherwise. And these kind of conversations don't traditionally happen on those big projects. They might happen, the project manager might know about it and try and work it out, but often the emergence that can only come from conversations had between those who are actually doing the development is something that those big room plannings allow to surface. So they are encouraging teams to communicate rather than relying upon someone who is trying to organize a larger project or program of work. In like a smaller organization, I mean, there's a reason why a ping pong table has become kind of ubiquitous in small software companies. It's generating a place where people can have some fun together and talk more casually about the work, and as long as they're allowed to use the ping pong table whenever they want to use it, it's encouraging another networking point for other teams. So I worked in a 5-team program of work, And we would have inter-team competitions at lunchtime. People from different teams who would only really talk to each other about work when they needed support from each other were building up a friendly relationship. And that's what the ping pong table's really meant to be there for, right? Is to help people understand and interact with each other in a way that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Hi, Georgina.
Hi, Ian.
Long time.
It is. So Ian taught me my CSM.
Wow, a long time ago.
Yes, yes.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, you too.
So I have a question. Do larger organizations need to be totally agile?
No, of course not. Sorry, that's a short answer, isn't it? No, large organizations don't need to be agile, but I think there is definitely a misconception when we as an agile community talk about SAFe and other scaling frameworks, and when managers in larger organizations who are just learning about agile are talking about agile, which is they genuinely think that they're going to be agile, and they're not. It's just not possible. As I said,
But,
it's not.
But I find that one of the problems here is that, for want of a better term, the agile community, and I question whether that even exists. There are too many people who are happy to sell these scaling solutions when they are not needed and not appropriate, just because the customer says that's what they want.
Yeah.
Rather than actually delving into the customer what they really need versus what they want.
Yes, I do wonder if they listen to the "we're there to make the customer happy." Right? If the customer wants that,
well,
they're doing the job.
I actually question with some people that I've come across whether it's because they want to make the customer happy or just because they want to move as much money from the customer's bank account into theirs as they can.
Yes. I think it is the latter.
Yeah.
But I think so. When I became an SPC was because I was working with an organization that were bringing back in-house. They'd outsourced 90% of their staff, and they were trying to bring maybe 40% back into house. And they'd hired a few people. So they had a consultant in, they hired a few people to come and be permanent people, myself included, and they created a structure. Yeah, you guys are going to be the Agile Center of Excellence. And the person at the top of our chain, who I didn't meet until 2 weeks after I started, because they didn't start until 2 weeks after I started, came in and was like, yeah, we're going to do SAFe. We're going to employ this group of consultants that I've worked with at my last organization. We're going to implement it like this. And anytime that there was some questioning from myself or other agile coaches, is this quite the right direction? Can we do something lighter weight? Because we don't really have any development teams at the moment. Why are we jumping straight into the overheads that SAFe offer? And this manager was committed, sold on SAFe. They didn't know any other way to do it. As far as they were concerned, that is how you do agile in a big organization. And there was no negotiation with it.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
But that's a problem that, for want of a better term, the agile community have actually helped to create.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Very nice insights. What are other people thinking based on that conversation with Georgina and Ian? Richard, you want to say something?
I was going to say, if you've got a small organisation that's very good at serving its customers and gets to the level of 15 people where it can't be self-managing anymore, is the logical step to try and split it at that point into two smaller organisations that can maybe serve half the customers each and continue to be self-managing within each half of the organisation?
Perhaps, I mean, there's a lot of variables, right? But maybe it is that the customer base has become diverse, and actually it's worth splitting to deal with different areas of that. Or maybe you can split it into two organizations where one is serving the other organization and looks for business elsewhere. But it might, maybe you can just outsource some work and go, actually, we don't need to hire more people, we only need to get people to do this and do more of what the 20 somethings are currently calling organizations of, what do they call it, contractors supporting each other, I think is the term. No, it's not, I can't remember. So basically, like, they're all about having this solopreneurship thing where you're all individual businesses, and these individual businesses are paying each other to do little bits of work, and they're finding lots of other people. So maybe they're even more agile because they are networks of organizations of one rather than networks within an organization. Yeah, I think there's definitely stuff there.
I've got a question back for you though, Richard. What do you mean by self-managing? What boundaries are on self-managing? Because self-managing shouldn't be a free-for-all.
I think with the authority to deal with customers in any way that they seem fit, and build a product that's relevant to those customer needs, perhaps within some broad guidelines from above, but all the sort of day-to-day stuff can be decided. The individuals in the team have got the authority to deal with, I think. But
how many organizations actually let the developers talk to real customers? Have you come across any?
I have.
Because most of the organizations I've come across, especially when I start working with them, they would not let a developer anywhere near a real customer. Most of their managers haven't even talked to a real customer.
Not any organisation with more than about 20 employees.
I spent maybe the first half of my development life working in companies that were 6 people or fewer, and they were probably the most agile organizations I've ever worked with. They were also the most unpleasant organizations to work for. But that's a different matter. But I do, and I'll just tell you this. So in 2008 I left uni, and I was working, it was a very small company, 5 of us I think, and our biggest client was the EA, and we had them in at least once a month, normally more frequently than that. And I remember my boss, the director, walking around at one point going, I don't know what all the big deal about this Agile manifesto is. That's how I've always worked. I don't get it.
It is. It's obvious. Yeah, that's where it all started.
Yeah.
Well, it's not actually where it all started. It started way before before the manifesto for Agile software development.
Yeah.
Well, it did.
Way before.
I've been working Agile since 1988.
Yeah, I've been working in Agile teams since 1986, and the first organisation I worked as a developer for, Georgina, probably about 500 people, and each dev team had its own product line, and each dev team talked to their own customers and managed their own workload.
Yeah,
and yeah, this was before the manifesto, before Scrum, before any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, my father-in-law was an IBM mainframe DBA, and
We won't hold that against you.
and about 10 or so years ago, when I was making the switch from dev to Scrum Mastery, he was like, so tell me about this Agile stuff. I've heard a bit about it. And he goes, oh God, that's just rad, isn't it? I've been doing that for ages. That's how you're meant to do software.
Yep.
Certainly not rad.
Yeah, don't forget the Post Office Horizon project started off as a rad project. That's why it's in such a mess. Yeah.
Did it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why there is no fundamental architecture to project.
This is it. Rad was just about iterating on user experience and user design, without worrying about any of the actual architecture behind it all.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
the
why
output
it's
was
fun.
important.
Mike, did you have a question? You did have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just following up from the question, well, from the conversation that Ian and Georgina were having, sort of like about a safe implementation. I mean, I've just left an organisation that's going through or has been through a safe transition over the last 3 years. And basically, all I think that SAFE does is put a nice agile veneer on existing hierarchical organisations. So all the program managers became RTEs, all the project managers became Scrum Masters, and then the coaches came in and said, this is all wrong. And as a result, it's like, no, we need to get rid of the coaches because they're just getting in the way of delivery.
Yeah, I'll just share this again, just so I can talk to people about it. But like, oh, it's not this slide, not this slide. This one. No, this way, this way, this way. There we go. They're very open about that's exactly what SAFE is, right? They call it the dual operating system, and that is utopia as far as SAFE is concerned, is that you maintain everything that's working for you in your hierarchy, but we allow you to be a network.
Yeah.
They love it. That is absolutely what they are trying to go for. So if that's what you saw a very successful SAFE implementation.
Well, I'm not so sure it was, because
Oh no, it was very successful SAFE implementation. It wasn't a very successful transition to agility.
Well, no, it's like the beginning of the year they rebranded it, so they called it their sort of like delivery framework, and they basically removed all reference to SAFE, so that means they don't have to pay a license.
Yeah.
Everything underpinning it is all lifted directly from SAFE, but
That's all right. SAFE was just directly lifted from other, well, actually lifted from other things and then mutilated.
Yeah, that's what Joel's just said in the comments. Yeah.
Joel, would you like to voice over? Any comments?
Oh no, this is just the token colonial listening in. Hey Ian.
Joel.
Ian was on my TAC, so I share similar heritage.
Yeah, you still got through. There must be something wrong.
I know. Hey, you did your best.
Yeah, it was that brown envelope stuff full of money.
I think Maru had a question for quite some time. I'm wondering but he put his hand back down after 15 minutes. Maru, am I pronouncing that right? Maybe he gave up on us.
Oh no, the hand's
Oh,
gone.
there he is. He went back up. There it is.
But you're on mute, Maru.
yeah, do you want to unmute?
Oh, I love the card. Yeah, nice.
That is Joel's contribution to the world.
We all got fed up of saying you're on mute, right?
Looks like Maru's there. Yes.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just waiting for the opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to unmute my laptop because Zoom with Miro will just kill its memory. And just on the topic of what is going on, this social cognitive dissonance around Agile. I've noticed this as a phenomenon around pretty much anything I've seen in my almost 30-year long career in many industries. I've been in research, I've been in consulting, I've been in software, and I've been in as a freelancer in very different ones. And in the case of Agile, this cognitive dissonance manifests in the fact that nobody knows what Agile is. Everybody thinks they know what Agile is. And in fact, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are convinced they know what Agile is. But I wish there would be a giant social experiment done by professional psychologists and researchers on us. And I hope the results will be that nobody has any freaking idea what the thing is. And that means that we have a very hard time selling its proposition because the answers are too heterogeneous. And people will tell you, oh no, I've been doing that for 20 years before the manifesto and 20 things. And then when you ask them what it was, and you get 100 different answers and stuff like that. And how do you want people in corporations to not feel lost and say, you know what, I'm gonna go the safe way. the safe path, I'm going to do the thing that I've always known that people are asking from me, from shareholders to my whole hierarchy, which is deliver, deliver, deliver. It's easy to understand, pun intended, because it becomes a tactic and a heuristic for, I just want to go through the path of least resistance and do what I know, which is really all these bozos telling me about the philosophy and psychology of agile and systemics and complexity and social and all that psychoneurotic neuroscience stuff about agile. They waste my time. Why would I talk to them? So this guy, who is the head of my center of excellence, you know, the gods of agile in my corporation, tells me that we're on the right path. I'm going to believe him, because if he fails, I'm going to fire him. And so I haven't done anything wrong. Why would I listen to some dispersed coaches who all say different things about agile, and I think they don't have any clue what that thing is? And in fact, I'm afraid to think that I know even less than them. So I want to know what you think about this poetic rant.
Can I jump on this one first? Because Mario, good news or bad news for you, depending on how you take it, but there's no such thing as agile. Agile is not a noun. To use it as a noun is a mutilation of the English language. Something the Americans are very good at, I know, but sorry, Joel. But it is a mutilation of the English language. And there is no such thing as the Agile Manifesto. There is a manifesto for agile software development. It describes a set of behavioral principles related specifically to developing software. Principles that drive behaviors around continuous delivery of value, collaboration, yeah, things like that. There is no such thing as agile, and this is another bugbear I've had with the so-called agile community for many years, is there are so many people who are just happy to sell a pound of agile here and a couple of kilos of agile there, and it means jack shit. Anyone else want to jump in here? Shall I just carry on ranting?
I felt like a mic
We all
drop.
know.
I just like preach.
Tim,
I'll give a yes
guys-
and.
you guys, can I take that back?
Yeah.
Or Joel takes that somewhere else. You can, if I had an AI, I would take the recording of what I said and just replace the word agile with the agile for software development. I just use linguistic shortcuts if that makes people happier. So that's exactly what I mean. That document, that piece with the letters and characters in black over a background with a photo of people. So, you know, just to be very specific. But I belong to a school of people who really disagree with using the word agile as a verb. It's extremely limiting, and it's a cognitive dissonance too, because it misleads people in understanding what agile is, the thing that everybody's working with, and it's a phenomenon, it exists. You can call it culture, movement, philosophy, whatever. There is something. People do not sell hot air or sand in the desert. It's only good for proverbs. This is a real economy. There is a thing. We don't know what's in there. It's conflicting, etc. And one of the phenomena that happens with people, and that's just people will say, that doesn't exist, or people will say, no, they're right, I'm wrong. For me, these are just rationalizations of a phenomenon that nobody understands, something that is out there. Agile with a capital A from me is a body of knowledge, a culture, a movement, and a way of thinking about doing work, be it in a system, small or big. It has many properties and many benefits. Some of them are agile with a small a. Some of them are adaptive. Some of them are resilient, innovative, many different things. I have a whole series of articles on this, just because language makes things so much clearer when you talk with people and you're actually trying to solve a problem or help a team transform. If you stay lost in the linguistics of something you don't even understand, then you increase your chances of getting lost out there and just confusing agile with a capital A, which is an adjective. It's a property that limits your space for maneuvering so much without you even knowing it. So when you do work on trying to define your own way of being agile or doing agile, so that you are more resilient, people think you're an alien coming out of space. What does resilience have to do with agile? You know, it's just a way to achieve some benefits for the company, and the list of the benefits for the company is limitless. Nobody told you. I'm not saying it's only one of these top 10 benefits. It's just a school of thought, a view. I'm not saying it's the right thing, because I think by the time I die, still nobody will have discovered what agile really is.
So I want to jump back in here if I can, because one of the biggest failings of Agile is that the value proposition was never made to the right people. You talk to a CEO of a big company and you talk about Agile and their eyes glaze over and they don't give a crap about it. What do they want? They want more effective delivery, quicker, cheaper, and stuff that actually works. Yeah, they want to get shit done. That's what they care about. Now, I'm telling you, talking about an agile mindset and all these fluffy psychobabble things ain't going to get you over the line with those people.
Correct.
Give them examples of how you can deliver, how you can help their organization deliver more effectively, more valuably. Doesn't mean cheaper, doesn't actually mean faster. It means more effectively. Yeah. If you want a psychological study on this, by the way, Mario, I would highly recommend you speak to a guy called Joseph Palreen. He's semi-retired. He is a qualified psychologist who's been in the agile software development work since the early days of extreme programming. I'm sure he'd be fascinated to do a study on agile people.
Ian, would you mind dropping that name into the chat just for everyone's benefit as well, and the spelling, I think, for the last
Yeah.
would be better.
I'm not saying it'll be cheap.
And then maybe Georgina would just give you the last word if there's anything else you wanted to follow up on.
Sure, yeah. I think there's a great point there around effectiveness and efficiency. And we worked out a long time ago how to do things efficiently, and we're still trying to work out how to do things effectively. And it's not that no one knows, it's that it's not known by society, by culture, by humans as a whole, in the same way that we know how to be efficient. And we're maybe at a turning point in a historical context, but it's hard to know when you're in a turning point, isn't it? So maybe we all just got to keep poking at this thing and working out what it is. And I'm pretty certain in another 5 to 10 years, it won't be agile. It'll be some other buzzword.